December 17, 1944. Deep in the frozen Ardennes forest, Obergrafreiter Hans Müller hunched inside a narrow foxhole scraped from the icy soil. His pencil shook as he tried to record the terror unfolding around him, words that years later he would still be unable to forget. "The Americans are not the Russians," he wrote. "It is not the number of shells that terrifies me. It is the speed, the precision, the way death arrives before you can even breathe." That morning, his battalion of the 6th SS Panzer Army had pushed forward confidently. The German winter offensive, Hitler's last attempt to split the Allied armies, had begun with total surprise. Thin American lines had buckled. For a moment, it seemed possible that the Reich might snatch one last victory. But as the fog swirled through the trees, American artillery found its mark. What Müller did not yet understand was that he and thousands of German soldiers were about to collide with the most sophisticated and lethal artillery system any army had ever fielded. The seeds of Germany's collapse, at least in the West, had been planted months earlier. Veteran German troops transferred from the Eastern Front had faced the thunderous power of Soviet artillery and had survived by learning its patterns. Russian guns needed time to range, time to adjust, time to prepare. Their barges came in waves, predictable enough for trained men to dive into cover or slip between salvos. Nothing in their experience prepared them for the Americans. One such veteran Oberfrainer, Otto Schmidt, had spent 2 bloody years fighting Soviet gunners before being transferred to Tunisia in 1943. In a post-war interview, he recalled his first encounter with American fire. His company was dug into a wadi north of Tunis, convinced the position was secure. The Russians, he remembered, would have taken an hour to find us and another hour to adjust their fire. Then a small aircraft, nothing more than a Piper Cub, buzzed overhead. The men barely noticed it. 3 minutes later, the world detonated. Shells erupted simultaneously across the entire wadi. Ground bursts, air bursts, explosions so sudden and accurate that Schmidt's company was wiped out in half a minute. Out of 123 soldiers, only 11 lived. The harmless little airplane was an American L-4 Grasshopper, a forward observer aircraft. The Germans quickly learned to fear it. Whenever one circled overhead, death followed within moments. Another observer, Lieutenant Friedrich Bauer, an artillery officer who had served on the Eastern Front, initially dismissed captured American field manuals as absurd propaganda. "No artillery system could operate so fast," he wrote. But after witnessing an American strike near St. Lo, he changed his mind forever. Before his own gunners could calculate counter-batter fire, American shells crashed down accurately on each of his guns. The Americans had coordinated multiple batteries, calculated all firing data, and delivered a perfectly timed strike, faster than the Germans could even react. The secret was not a single advantage, but a seamless system of innovations, technical, organizational, and industrial. At the heart of the system was the Fire Direction Center FDC, an American innovation that completely changed the way artillery was used. German batteries calculated their firing solutions individually. American units did not. Every gun fed its data to a central FDC that coordinated dozens of batteries at once. This allowed American gunners to mass fire on a target in minutes. Crucial to the system were the extraordinary firing tables compiled in the United States. In offices filled with women operating mechanical calculators, every variable, wind, humidity, temperature, barrel wear, altitude differences, and more, was calculated in advance. These tables, small enough to fit in a map case, allowed us fire direction officers to obtain precise firing solutions almost instantly. German mathematician Weir Hoffmann, drafted as an artillery officer, studied captured American tables after the war. He was stunned. Germany's own tables were crude by comparison and required laborious calculations in the field. The Americans had already done the work. But the Americans did not merely fire faster. They fired in a way no other army could match. Their most devastating technique was known as time on target, or TOOT. By calculating the exact flight time of shells from multiple batteries at different distances, American gunners arranged for every shell to strike within the same 3-second window. There were no ranging shots, no warning whistles, only silence followed by instant devastation. Research after the war revealed that two-thirds of artillery casualties occurred in the first few seconds of a barrage. Toot ensured that those first seconds were overwhelming and unavoidable. German diaries throughout Normandy, the Ardennes, and Italy described this phenomenon with disbelief. One entry by Stabsfeld Wabelcourt Zimmermann reads, "It is not artillery as we understand it. It is something new. You hear nothing, and then the world ends." American response time was equally shocking. German batteries, even under ideal conditions, needed 8 to 10 minutes to fire accurately. The Americans routinely delivered accurate fire in 3. Powerful FM radios, clear, static-free, and far more numerous than German AM sets, allowed American forward observers to communicate instantly. Unlike their German counterparts, who were artillery officers often unfamiliar with infantry operations, American forward observers trained to fight alongside infantry units. A single lieutenant on the front line could call down the firepower of an entire corps. That firepower was immense. Every American infantry division fielded 36 105mm howitzers, all fully motorized. German artillery still relied overwhelmingly on horses. As late as 1945, Germany used more than 1 million of them. Under fire, or in winter conditions, German guns took hours to move. American batteries could shoot, pack up, relocate, and fire again in half an hour. One German gunner watched in astonishment as a U.S. battery displaced and re-established itself before his own horse teams had even finished limbering their guns. The American 155mm howitzer added even more weight. And corps-level artillery, 155mm guns, 8-in howitzers, and massive 240mm monsters could all be summoned by frontline observers. Meanwhile, German corps artillery was controlled by separate commands and often took hours or even days to answer requests. Then came the technological leap that truly transformed the battlefield, the variable time fuse, or VT fuse. Inside each shell was a tiny radar set that triggered detonation at the ideal height, usually 10 to 20 meters above the ground. Unlike conventional timed fuses, which required exact calculations and were often inaccurate, the VT fuse worked perfectly in all conditions. In tests, it increased lethality by several 100%. Initially reserved for naval anti-aircraft fire, VT fuses were finally approved for ground use during the Battle of the Bulge. The effect on German troops.